Arteta spoke to the press ahead of Arsenal's match against Sevilla, but obviously a lot of the conversation was about Arteta's comments after the Newcastle game. He was asked whether or not he would do something different or whether or not he regretted the things that he said, and he went ahead and said this.
It is my duty to stand in front of you, to stand in front of the cameras and give a very clear and honest assessment of what happens on the game. And this is what I did. Reflect very openly how I felt that the team played and how the game was conditioned by these results with the decisions that were made. And it's the duty. My duty is to be defending my players, supporting my players, supporting my club, defending my people in the best possible way. And this is what I'm going to do time after time. And I do it not the way I feel, with the evidence and being as clear as possible. And I always do it. When we play, really need to say that. When we have lost, to take my responsibility, the first one me, to do it. And it's the way that I am. And
The one thing I really love about what Mikel Arteta said there is that when we play really well, he says that. When we have things to improve upon, he says that. He doesn't go into the media every single time and complain about referees. I think there was only one time where he really went at the referees, and he didn't even really do it in a direct way. He just said, if I say what I think, I'll be suspended for 6 months or whatever he said. So this is not Arteta being a whingy, whiny baby, and he just needs to take responsibility. He always takes responsibility. In fact, he never even blames his players. He doesn't blame referees, players, nothing. He's really honest about what he thinks about the game. And this one did feel different. Newcastle felt different. It did feel as though they made some very big errors throughout the game that skewed the result. If Newcastle don't score that goal, we probably walk out of there with at least a draw. They created next to nothing. That goal happened, and we should have been playing against 10 men. So it's not as though Mikel Arteta is consistently complaining. He's very honest and very transparent, and I love that he says that it's the way that I am. I'm going to defend my club. If nobody's going to defend Arsenal, then who is? Because Arsenal just seem like enemy number one all the time. And so I think Arsenal need a manager that's going to stand up and defend the club. He was also asked whether or not he was upset about just the goal or the other decisions as well. Other decisions like Bruno Guimaraes absolutely losing his head, being petulant, and should have been sent off. You know, that's the one that really stands up in my mind. But he spoke about what he was actually upset about, and he said this.
Yeah, things that they don't happen overnight, you know, and when I was that clear and when I had all the evidence to stand for the words that I use in the media, it's because I feel strongly about them. But one thing I say externally, then as well internally to my players, is how can we play better, how can we be more dominant, how we can do the game the way we want, so giving no chance to the opponents. But one thing is my duty towards you guys, and then my duty as a coach to do what we have to do. And this is exactly what I've done. Nothing special, nothing different, and I would do it, and the club would do it again and again till this is right. And till this is right as well in what we have to do on the pitch to play better and win more football games. That's it.
Some things don't happen overnight. This was not just an outburst about the Newcastle game. It's a build-up. This season alone, Arsenal, the Kovacic situation, I think, really stands out as one that when rivals and pundits say that Arsenal just need to suck it up, that was one of the most egregious errors. Like that and the Liverpool decision, the onside goal decision, for me, are just like, what are you doing? That went against us. Also, Sanchez, like, come on. He flies through the air like Superman, misses the ball, and takes Gabriel Jesus out. I think also Arsenal will feel aggrieved by that. And then there is a list of decisions that have went against Arsenal over the last couple of seasons that I think Arsenal have been quiet on. They haven't really went at the referees about. But at this stage, it's like enough is enough. Enough is enough. On my last video, I went through just the ones off of the top of my head. It was a lot, 10 or so decisions that you'll never see again. You'll never see the double yellow in one sequence for Martinelli. You'll never see that again. One of the funnier parts of the press conference was when Arteta was asked about whether or not VAR changes or impacts his behavior on the sideline. We all know that Mikel Arteta is on the bulletin board for the PGMOL as the enemy number one for managers on the sideline. He's been accused of being over the top, aggressive, always chatting to the fourth official, always doing this, always doing that. Mikel Arteta said, "There is the answer. Your colleague has mentioned how emotional I was after the game and how I acted on the touchline. I didn't get a yellow. I didn't get a warning from the referee, so I stayed and focused on the game, trying to affect the game in the best way possible for my players. That's it." And that's so funny that the journalist said that Arteta was emotional. He was not raging. Mikel Arteta was not raging in that press conference, and he also was not raging on the sideline. So again, it's the media shaping the narrative around somebody without actually looking at the facts that Mikel Arteta did. If he had been anywhere near passionate on that sideline, he would have got a yellow card against Newcastle, but he didn't. Somebody else did, who is being lauded now as this classy character, actually is the one that yesterday got a yellow card for complaining about decisions that he said that you just have to accept in his press conference. Have a day off. Have a day off. Mikel Arteta was not overly emotional or anything like that. Didn't affect his behavior on the sideline. And I just also wanted to pull up this video from Mauricio Pochettino. If I was Mikel Arteta, I would be texting Mauricio Pochettino and saying, "Come outside. Why are you coming for me?" Mikel Arteta was saying before the Chelsea match how this is his brother, this is somebody he looks up to. Pochettino also said a bunch of stuff. For him to say this, I'm really surprised, because even though he's going to say that he's not talking about Mikel Arteta, he is 100% talking about his little bro.
No, too many coaches wanted the VAR. And then when he say again you, and now that is a disgrace, and that is, it's difficult. I'm not talking about Arteta. I'm not talking about Arteta.
So even though Pochettino has said that he's not talking about Mikel Arteta, he's 100% talking about him. I would be saying, come outside. Why are you talking about me in the press, bro? It's so obvious that you're talking about him. And oh, by the way, don't let that 4-1 win fool you. You guys were diabolical. You are still on the ropes. You only really beat Spurs because they went down to 9 men. And in fact, I think if they had only had 1 man sent off, you still would have lost that game. So need I say more? Need I say more? So I like that Mikel Arteta has been vocal about it. He's spoken about it. He's been very clear. But equally, we have a game ahead. And he did say, after they asked him about the Newcastle game several times, that now we talk about Sevilla and the beautiful game that we have to play tomorrow. And it's time to turn the page on this whole Newcastle thing. It's not just about Newcastle, but the media is dining out on this. The ass-kissing of Ange in comparison to the media onslaught on Arteta is just something that I feel like a couple of really good results for Arsenal will kind of quiet down. I do think we have to be very careful here, and also remember that PGMOL will probably try to get their lick back. They're probably going to try to get their lick back at some stage, but Arsenal have to control their situation. And the way that you control your narrative is by beating the 12th man as well. I think Michael Oliver is going to referee our game at the weekend against Burnley. He's supposed to be the best in the country. Hopefully he does a good job. But from now until then, we have a really important game against Sevilla where we could get one foot in the door into the round of 16, which is really important for Arsenal. Arsenal have an amazing opportunity to qualify for the round of 16 with a win against Sevilla tomorrow. Arsenal really need to take advantage of this situation because we have quite a few injuries. We don't have our best team available. And so if we can put this to bed now, then we don't have to be stressed out about it later with the injuries kind of piling up. And Mikel Arteta did say this, that the moment you have a chance in football to put it to bed, do it. We have to do a lot of things right tomorrow to earn the right to win it against a really good team with enormous experience in this competition. We have to prove it tomorrow in front of our people how excited we are to play that game and what it means to us. It's a rallying cry for Mikel Arteta. He's basically asking everybody to pull together to get these boys over the line, because we all know that we do not need to allow the Champions League group to become something bigger than it needs to be. Arsenal should be topping the group. Not saying we should just walk it, but if you have this opportunity against we'll talk about their form in a second, a Sevilla team that's not really at the peak of their powers, you need to do it. And the fans in the stands are going to have to take a little bit of responsibility for this. I think being at the earlier matches at the Emirates this season, there is a level of tension that was not there last season. Last season, we were loose, everybody was energetic, everybody was all together, singing from the same hymn sheet. This season, because of the level of pressure, I think, and maybe some of the recruitment decisions, Arsenal fans, there's tension in the air. Back the players that are out there. Let's put our nervousness aside and just get these boys over the line, because the emotion at the Emirates, the fact that we don't have that great of a home record as we should as a really top side, this is super important. So this is a rallying cry from Mikel Arteta to say, basically, we have to prove it tomorrow in front of our people. The players have to come with their own, they have to prove it as well on their own, but it's also up to the fans to back the boys. And so hopefully everybody is hearing Mikel Arteta and we get the job done. So probably the biggest topic of conversation going into this game is the availability of some of our really important players. Mikel Arteta has said that on early team news, Gabriel Jesus won't be fit. And with Martin Odegaard, it's still uncertain. The rest, no team news so far. Those are not the only ones, but let's start with Gabriel Jesus and Martin Odegaard. With Gabriel Jesus, there is a little bit of a battle brewing between Arsenal and the Brazilian national team. I spoke about this on my show yesterday, but Gabriel Jesus has been called up to the Brazilian national team for their World Cup qualifiers in November. And essentially, the Dinez, the Brazilian coach, says there was a lack of transparency from Arsenal in October over Gabriel Martinelli. We all remember that Martinelli did not go to Brazil camp, but he did play against Manchester City. He returned sooner than anticipated for his club, and he scored against Manchester City. Dinez said, in the last squad, we hadn't called up Martinelli from Arsenal. He didn't report to Seleção in a very complete way, so we didn't imagine that Martinelli would be ready to play against Venezuela and Uruguay, and he was ready to play before these games. Because of this, too, we're going to bring Gabriel to find out the real condition, because we still have 15 days to go until the game. So we believe he could be fit enough to play, because I like him a lot. We have 24 players on the list, and if anything happens to him, we won't need to change the squad. Dinez has covered his own back with the inclusion of Brian João Pedro. Who cares? We don't care about those players, right? But basically, I said this in my show yesterday, that Arsenal have to be, I think, a little bit clever here, like they were with Saka. They sacrificed Saka playing against Manchester City in order to justify him not going to England camp. The difference between these two circumstances, though, is that Brazil, their games are a lot more serious than England's game during that international break. They were already pretty much through to the Euros. They played a friendly. These games for Brazil are super important. They're World Cup qualifying matches. And so when you think about the amount of time that we have between now and those games, Arsenal will have to not let Gabriel Jesus play against Sevilla, which he's not going to, and also not allow him to play against Burnley so that they can justify him not going. And Arsenal do not want Gabriel Jesus going to those games. Now, the other person that probably needs to be consulted here is Gabriel Jesus. What does he want to do? If he's fit enough to go and to stake a claim on the number 9 position for Seleção, then he'll probably want to do that. And so it's a sticky situation that Arsenal have to manage carefully, because you don't want Gabriel Jesus to resent you for not allowing him to go if he is fit. Equally, we need him badly because our goal scoring situation is not looking good. Arteta hasn't figured out the right combination in the front line as well as in midfield, and Arsenal are not creating a lot of chances. And people think a lot of that might have something to do with Gabriel Jesus. And so Gabriel Jesus not being available, So there could be a little bit of a battle going here. I like that Dinez favors Arsenal players. I think the Arsenal players that we have that could play for Brazil have earned the right through the play that they've or their form and performances for Arsenal. They've earned the right to be a part of that team, and so Arsenal, they're gonna have to make a really difficult decision. But we're not gonna see Gabriel Jesus against Sevilla, which is a blow for Arsenal. And maybe we won't see him against Burnley so that they can make sure that he doesn't go to the Brazil camp. So that's what's going on with Gabriel Jesus. So again, just to be clear, he won't be available against Sevilla. Now, Martin Odegaard is an interesting one because he played a couple of minutes against West Ham and then was not available or in the squad against Newcastle. Arteta was asked about that, and he said it's in no relation with what we had and what happened the day before the game against Newcastle. They are two different topics and things. So he could potentially be saying that Martin Odegaard's injury that was that he had before West Ham is different than the one that he had after West Ham, and that maybe he's gotten another injury, or maybe it's a personal issue. We don't know. He hasn't really said whether or not it's an injury or not. He just said the circumstances are different. Nevertheless, Odegaard is not going to be available for the game against Sevilla. Again, another huge blow. A lot of people were saying that, if Odegaard is not in the lineup, that Saka would fly. He was holding Saka back. Saka would play so much better without him or with anybody else in that right center mid spot. Life without Martin Odegaard is not fun, okay? We need him available, but equally, Arsenal need to be careful with him, because if he just needs to go through this, couple of week period without playing, and that will give him the rest and recovery time to be ready for, December, that's what we need, because December is when it's going to really start hitting. The games are going to be a lot harder, thick and fast, Christmas period. And so it might be best to allow him to rest against Sevilla, a game that we should be able to win at home without him, a game against Burnley at home, which we should be able to win without him. Let the international break go by, him not go. Norway, they're finished, so he doesn't really need to go, does he? And then when we get back from there, be ready to play for Arsenal. Another player that has popped up as a doubt for the game against Sevilla is Eddie Nketiah. He didn't train today. Martin Odegaard wasn't in training, and neither was Nketiah, and Arteta has basically said that he's going to be a late fitness call for the game against Sevilla. That's very interesting, because I had him in my predicted lineup, obviously because Mikel Arteta always plays him. But if he's not available, Arteta has a really important decision to make, because you could say play Havertz up top or Trossard. We're going to get to the predicted lineup and what I prefer to see happen. But that adds an interesting wrinkle. Arteta hasn't loved using Trossard through the center, so we'll see what happens there. But Nketiah may not play as well tomorrow. And then you have Partey with a longer term injury, and ESR, who's going to be out for a month. So we're not going to anticipate seeing either one of them. And then you have Timber obviously out for the foreseeable future. So those are the players that are not going to be available for the game against Sevilla.